On tonight's edition of the CHGO Cubs Related Podcast, Alex Bregman is a Chicago Cub. He is introduced at Wrigley Field. We'll talk his comments, Jed Hoyer's comments, look ahead to the rest of the offseason, and even CubsCon this weekend. Plenty to talk about on tonight's edition of the CHGO Cubs Related Podcast. This is the CHGO Cubs Related Podcast driven by Toyota. Let's go places. My name is Corey. I am joined, as always, by Brendan. It is Thursday, January 15th. And Brendan, it's CubsCon this weekend. John Lester's going to be in town. They're celebrating.
Look at that. What does that say?
Anniversary.
I need context.
Cubs winning the World Series.
Winning the World
2016.
Series. Okay.
The Chicago Bears are hosting their second playoff game of the season, and Alex Bregman is a Chicago Cub. Look at us, Brendan. Who would have thought?
What a time to be alive. Corey, we have a Gold Glover at third base. We have a Gold Glover
everywhere
at shortstop. We have a Gold Glover at second base. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. This is my dream. I used to dream of having these star-studded infields, these decorated former World Series champion Gold Glovers. I was obsessed with Nomar Garcia-Parra. I almost fainted when the Cubs traded for him when I was a small little kid or teenager. This is unbelievable that we're at this point and we can talk about a multi-time Gold Glove infield, and maybe even let's make it a quadruple Gold Glove with Michael Busch at first base this year.
I think he can get there. So plenty to talk about on tonight's episode. Obviously, if you missed it, Brendan and Luke jump in during the Bears game.
That was, by the way, that was nuts. Little inside info for you.
Yeah.
I'm watching the game, and I'm so depressed with the Bears. I'm like, I need a distraction. I'm going to do the live show with Luke. He needs a distraction. I need a distraction. Next thing you know, we're doing the podcast. There's 2 minutes left in the game. They're missing field goals. They're coming back. I literally hung up with Sarah, our producer. They took the lead on that DJ Moore touchdown. So I'm not saying that Luke and I let them win the game and Alex Bregman spawned that victory, but Alex Bregman's already bringing victories and wins to Chicago.
Well, and supposedly he will be in the building on Sunday at a frigid Soldier Field, but this is the Cubs Related Podcast.
That's right.
Cubs Related. Plenty to talk about. Alex Bregman introduced, obviously, as I was alluding to, Luke and Brendan hopped on during that Bears game when Alex Bregman signed to do an emergency reaction show. Joey, Luke, Justin have had their reactions, but I've been the Bregman guy. You're going to have to get my reaction, even though it's a few days late. But
what was your first reaction?
Let me finish the outline for everybody. I want to talk about that. He's introduced at Wrigley Field on Thursday afternoon. I want to talk about his comments, Jed Hoyer's comments. Also want to talk about the deferrals in the contract, what that might signify.
Loves a good luxury tax.
Well, for what that means for ownership and maybe going forward here, some of the rumors that still abound, and finishing off this offseason. It doesn't sound like they're necessarily totally done. So plenty to talk about here on this episode. And I know already, you in particular, Brendan, we'll talk about the on the field impact. But some of that information and those quotes from Bregman, from Jed about what's going on, even already off the field, you're in love. I already know you're in love.
I can't believe this is our reality. It's so fun to have a trio of these infielders with the same mindset. Bregman is a psycho. I can't wait to see it.
So my initial thoughts, but I do want to say I see that quote from Joshua Blankenship in the chat. First live show listening from West Virginia. Joshua, pleasure to have you here. And everybody else in the live chat. I see Niren's here, our friend Evo Wax, Becky, a lot of people in there. We appreciate you joining us. Drop your thoughts as we're going. Initial reaction, Brendan, I'm thrilled. And this is one like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I've been banging on this drum for 2 off seasons. I think he's an excellent fit for this team. We'll talk about some of the off-field stuff, I think that comes up in the press conference as well, just his work ethic, the baseball rat mentality that you're hearing a lot about. But on the field, we went through it, right? Like he is such a solid all-around hitter. And while he may not have that ceiling that, say, an absolute ideal outcome from like Kyle Tucker that maybe he was on pace for in those first 3 months, his overall consistent value across, offense, defense, his leadership, and the type of hitter that he is to complement this lineup. We've talked so much about some of the younger guys, some of the guys where you're like, well, are they going to be more like their first half last year, their second half? They had really extreme outcomes at different points. Bregman, while not being a 300 hitter like Nico, does represent one of those more just consistent, stable, really solid hitters that allows those other guys to be a little more volatile, take a little bit of the pressure off them, but what you're going to get in Alex Bregman. And so I was overjoyed with that. And assuming they don't do anything stupid like our guy Joey is talking about, and trading Nico Hoerner.
Just say no.
They're going to have a very complete offense and lineup from top to bottom. And I'm very excited about it. And I'm very excited, look, what it means, even, figuratively, Brendan. This is 2 off seasons they've been connected to him. We've read a lot of rumors that their internal models really liked Alex Bregman. And so I think to have a second off season, if you miss on that, it represents something. So the opposite represents something too. This was your guy. And to read finally that the Cubs outbidding the Boston Red Sox, another team where their fans debate their spending, but they have the money if they want to. They outbid them and they do what they have to do to get the guy. You wanted the guy, go get him. If it's a little out of your comfort zone in terms of the money or the deferrals or anything, you want the guy, go get him. And they did. And I think that represents something we should all be pretty pleased about. Now, doesn't mean they're going to go and spend like the Padres or the Mets or the Dodgers and have a $400 million payroll, but we've been looking for them to act more like this. And so to see it is rather exciting. And it happens to come with a guy that I'm quite thrilled they have in the fold.
You can't ask for a better mindset for Dansby Swanson, PCA, and Alex Bregman leading the next 5 years of this franchise. But it will be a next decade before those contracts are up. So those are the 3 guys that I gravitate towards personality-wise. And then you talk about the on-field value, how you make it work with the rest of the roster. We're going to go into detail about it. We'll talk about the nuance and minutia of how everyone fits, but just bird's eye view, there was a generality that Jed gave during the press conference, and he compared 2016's depth to this current roster. And by the way, 2016, very important year, Corey, if you don't remember.
They're celebrating it all weekend, if you forgot.
And I believe it is a World Series championship they're celebrating. They, in that year, had Javi Baez take about 400 plate appearances. Now, by the start of the playoffs, you may remember they shifted around the actual positional side of the roster. You had Zobrist moving out into the outfield. You had Javi Baez moving to second base. Chris Bryant was back at third base. So the positions moved around.
And catchers in the outfield.
You had catchers in the outfield. And you had Kyle Hendricks getting base hits in the NLDS, by the way. But after the next 2 years, having that depth naturally worked itself out. Some guys fizzled, really promising prospects fizzled. And thankfully, the Cubs had the reserve to make up for that middle infield depth. So we can apply the same logic to Matt Shaw. And we'll get into how the number of plate appearances work. But having middle infield depth, middle infield depth, not first base depth, not just third base depth. You have 4 middle infielders as of the last 2 years that you can shift around the diamond, and even maybe in an emergency scenario, you could put one of those guys in the outfield, like Matt Shaw, in the outfield in an emergency.
Yeah, I felt this way last year and I feel this way now. I had no concern about this. I think, you're not always going to be at optimal health. And we've seen this before, Jed even mentioning, Javi Baez and the 2016 versatility, something that we've talked about before. And I think you can make that work, but you get the good players in the door at the positions that you have available or relatively available, and you figure it out from there. I think often the conversation of, are guys blocked? Should we hold the space for this guy? How are we going to get the plate appearances? I get it, but I do think it does naturally work itself off. And we've seen in the past couple of years, like some of these guys can afford to take a day or two off their feet, even if you have to, rip Dansby off the field, right? Like it's okay every now and again, shifting around, putting a guy at DH, day off their feet. Now you have multiple people that can play shortstop, they can play third base, they can play second base. You can find ways to make this work. Jed Hoyer even talking about Matt Shaw playing in the outfield. I don't know if that's something they'll seriously explore or not.
An emergency scenario, maybe.
But yeah, right? I mean, you do go back to Joe Madden. Like, I don't think they went into the year expecting Wilson Contreras to be playing left field. But you know what? Like, you wanted the bat in there on a given night. Here's what we're gonna do, right?
I mean,
like, we're gonna figure it out.
So wild card 2015, who was your right fielder? Kyle Schwarber, right fielder, first time.
Yeah,
Kyle Schwarber in the wild card game.
So I think it's a problem for later. And look, maybe they're exploring a trade. It does allow them to take those phone calls. Like, I know it freaks everybody out, especially on Nico. They shouldn't do that. We're not even entertaining that. Like, don't do that. He was your best player last year. Like, there's no scenario where the 2026 Cubs are better off by trading Nico Hoerner.
I'm not even going to use that word trade. That's the only time I'm going to use this in the podcast.
But even as it relates to Matt Shaw, it does give you the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Technically, we don't need all of these guys. If you want to call us and give us a big time prospect haul or something like that, we'll field the phone call. Because we technically are operating now out of a, not a position of need, but a position of depth. But either way, I think, Bregman too, such a perfect complement, I think, to what we felt plagued this team last year on the offensive side as they were getting eliminated, and just thinking ahead to the gauntlet of the playoffs, like a guy that does not strike out a ton. If you're talking about guys that had at least 450 plate appearances, Bregman wasn't technically a qualified hitter if you're sorting on like Fangraphs, but 450 plate appearances, he would have been in the top 25.
He had a quad injury, in case anyone's wondering. Yes. He came back.
He would have been in the top 25 in K rate. Nico Hoerner, I think is number 5 or something like that. But, you felt like this team needed more guys that could put the bat on the ball, that could handle elite level pitching and not be so boom or bust at times. And Bregman is one of the best players available that fits that mold. So adding him to this group with his ability, we'll see how it translates at Wrigley Field, 20-25 home runs, a guy that, can consistently put up a 270, 360, 450 type slash line, really, really complements this lineup. And if you do get those closer to extreme outcomes from someone like Michael Busch carrying over what he did last year, say a Suzuki slugging at his optimal level, PCA spreading out that 30 homer power in a less volatile way, guys like Nico and then Bregman complement that so well. They provide the stability, and then those other guys hopefully can lift that ceiling. But Bregman has such a high floor that he adds to this offense. And that's not even getting into his overall mentality and how he sees the game and what he's bringing to this clubhouse, which I think is not a small portion of why this is such an exciting deal for this team and where this team is at currently. So we'll talk more about what was in the press conference. We'll talk about, Jed Hoyer comparing the team a little bit to 2016. We'll talk about, title aspirations, what has changed after this move, how did they finish the offseason. We'll talk about all that and more after we hit our first ad break, and we'll come back and keep talking about Alex Bregman and the Chicago Cubs.
That's right. Dear winner, Toyota can't get enough of you because Toyota's got 25 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. From the versatile RAV4 to the svelte Crown, the sleek Camry all-wheel drive, the Corolla hybrid all-wheel drive, the rugged Tacoma, the tenacious Tundra, and the spacious Grand Highlander with all-wheel drive to keep you and yours safe. Hey, you bring the action, we'll bring the traction. Toyota, let's go places. Old National Bank, whether it's on the field or in your financial life, the best teams win by delivering excellence at every single level. That's the mindset of Old National Bank because every play matters, from everyday checking to long-term planning to commercial banking. Their team is built to help you build momentum one smart move at a time. Whether you're celebrating a big win, rebuilding after a tough loss, or gearing up for what's next, Old National Bank is in your corner with real people, real guidance, and tools designed to move you forward. They don't just manage accounts, they build relationships, and they help turn good plans into great outcomes. Old National Bank, where relationships and results matter. Member FDIC. By the way, become a CHGO diehard today. Upgrade your fandom. Get access to our exclusive written content, a free t-shirt, plenty of discounts on future merch and events, plus access to our CHGO Discord lounge where we all hang out and talk Chicago sports and so much more. You want to talk about the Bears and Cubs at the same time? This is the place to do it. Go to allchgo.com for the latest information and how you can join the thousands of CHGO diehards in our community. We cannot wait to connect with you on an ever greater level. We cannot wait to talk more about the Cubs and spring training with Jared Willis's content and his written content and the guys every day doing their podcast. It's a great time to be a Chicago sports fan.
All right, Brendan, back with you here. Let's talk about the press conference that we have with Alex Bregman. And I think the main thing, look, a lot of it focuses on the desire to win, what the Cubs were planning and where the organization was. And, certainly at these things, you get a lot of, it doesn't matter where a guy signs. They're going to say the right things. They're going to, rah, everything else. But I think hearing some of the stuff, particularly off the field, we knew this. You were hearing the stories of them having to, turn the lights on in the middle of the morning at LSU because he kept sneaking in there to go in the batting cage and stuff like that. Like, generally the vibe this guy has. You've read it in the different clubhouses, Houston, Boston, that he is such a leader and brings that winning mentality. But even just some of the early stuff that, he was asking for, not only the contact information, but scouting reports on his fellow new teammates on the Cubs. He was setting up calls with the minor league coordinators so that he understood the language of the organization and how to speak to other players in the organization and making sure that he was consistent in the language that the organization was using. Throughout his career, he's learned Spanish because he thinks it's important to speak to his teammates in their native language. You're just listening to some of this stuff going, man, it's hard to quantify this stuff, but especially when you have a team with so many young players, guys that last year was their first playoff experience. Last year was their first playoff heartbreak. And now they're going into a year, like some of these guys have never played back-to-back years where the expectations are this high. And they're going into a season where people are going to be talking about them potentially as the favorite to win a division. Like, fans are talking about World Series expectations again with such a big signing. Having a player with that level of leadership and experience, not only that he's been there and done that, but that he owns it, man. Like, he wants to be the guy that players are coming to. He wants to work with younger players and those in the clubhouse to get better and fix things that they are not excelling at. It's really exciting to have a player they already have some. Dansby also lives and breathes this stuff. They seem very similar in that regard. Couple SEC boys, like, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if there's, like a rivalry there, Vandy and LSU. I'm not really sure, but having that type of leadership and that sort of like, it's not to suggest the other guys don't want to win and it's not important, but like, listen, like, and I'm not giving any credence to it. I'm not there, but you're hearing sort of the opposite discussion about someone like Kyle Tucker. Those are some of the conversations you're seeing on these national shows. Look,
who knows?
I hear you, but I'm saying, not everybody has this attitude that is perceived Bregman has, right? Whether that's true about Tucker or not, I'm just saying that's the national conversation. Some of the former players were saying that. To have this conversation and to hear early on the efforts that he's making to be the leader in this clubhouse, it's extremely exciting.
One of the things I do throughout the season is I track rolling peripherals of chase, of every single StatCast measurement you can imagine. Anecdotally, and I can probably actually do this literally, Pete Crow Armstrong has those peaks and valleys, right? There's been instances where even last year, Ian Happ had a little bit more valley and peak as well. One of the most stable guys on that team was Nico Hoerner. His peaks and valleys were both short, but high as well. And when Pete Crow Armstrong was talking about the playoffs in late September, he wrote his own article on the Players Tribune. I go back to this all the time because it's so illuminating. And he was talking exactly about Nico's consistency. And he said, quote, "I think what Nico has that I don't yet is the ability to ride the lows, to stay cool and calm and trust the work even when it's not paying off." That's one player in Nico Hoerner. That's one perspective that obviously Pete is going to learn from. He went to Justin Turner last year. I'm sure Dansby Swanson is also an influence. Having more of that, different perspectives, different communication tactics is a plus. You take some of those valleys and some of those peaks and you just compress it, you can boost your weighted runs created plus by 5 percentage points. You can boost your weight on base average by a few points. That does matter. And Bregman, I do believe just the way he goes about adjusting and his overall game, it has to be beneficial to those around him.
Yeah. And those guys set the precedent. It doesn't only come from them. I think, we would look last year and say that PCA was so much of the identity of the team from at least a fan perspective. And that matters in the clubhouse too. But because they're doing the reunion and we're talking about it, it does remind me of 2016. Like when we think back to those teams, we don't like the best player on that team in that year is Chris Bryant. We don't really think of him as like the identity of the team. When we think back on that team, I think most of us would think that identity was driven by David Ross, John Lester, Dexter Fowler, Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist, like Jason Hayward, like those guys creating the culture that team existed within, even if each of them was not necessarily the best player. Even someone like John Lackey, like those guys set the identity of, hey, like the expectations are through the roof for this team. And here's how we're going to go about our business on a day-to-day basis. And I think that when you have a core like Dansby, Nico, now Alex Bregman, some of the other veterans on this team, I think that can pace the sort of identity within this clubhouse and what their mantra is on a day-to-day basis, even if some of those guys at times are not the best overall player on the field. They kind of dictate the pace a little bit, and it's very important.
We talk about the emotions of the game all the time. Maybe in the past, use those emotional contexts to talk about bringing guys up from AAA to expose them, to get them going. The same can be said in the example you gave about David Ross and the veteran core from 2016. The emotional input for baseball players has an effect. The quantifiable effect is unclear because it's so messy, but the way you can regulate yourself, that drives different motor outputs. It drives value. And the value is, again, in those lows, mitigating those lows, raising those lows, and making your ceiling a little bit more consistent. I think that's the value of having, quote unquote, good clubhouse leadership. The good clubhouse leadership is a luxury, number one, but it's also beneficial in changing behavior that leads to actual value. We can talk about this with Javi Baez and the effect Joe Madden had on Javi Baez.
Certainly.
When Joe Madden traveled to Puerto Rico just before the 2015 season, and Javi was Javi. And you saw all the adjustments that he made while remaining comfortable and regulating all the different emotional input as well. So that's why I gravitate towards those players, because in some respect, when I watch Nico Hoerner play, when I watch Dansby Swanson play, those guys who are constantly keeping a high level of intensity, when I was playing, don't laugh, I'm being serious here, I wish I had that, because I was a mess out there. I wish I had their ability to lock it in, be fearless, and regulate the emotions just as well as they do on a day-to-day 162 game basis.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have a lot of guys in this clubhouse who can really benefit from this. You may, as it stands right now, have someone in Moises Ballesteros who's getting a significant run in this lineup for the first time in his career. Good amount of pressure there, and how you make those adjustments, how you take that opportunity. We've talked about PCA, a guy like Matt Shaw, who right now may be a super utility guy, a guy whose starting position was just signed away. I think he can benefit a lot from the guys in this clubhouse in how to adjust to that, how to still take advantage of the opportunity that he has. There's guys across this clubhouse that I think can benefit from that type of leadership. And I think getting more of it is only great. And, look, like that in and of itself, we talked about this a little bit with Justin Turner, right? Like, it's got to be more than that. It also helps that
your guy, Justin Turner,
Alex Bregman, has been one of, the better players in baseball over the last several years. So it certainly is an added bonus. But I like that, to me, Brendan, was one of the more important things in that conversation. But to me, perhaps just as it represents the organization as a whole, I want to do, this is our big takeaway presented by Xfinity. Imagine that, from the press conference. And it was really, to me, you can offer yours, but my big takeaway was hearing Jed Hoyer even loosely explain the conversations that he had with Tom and Crane about their philosophy on the deferrals and how to structure these contracts, and that it didn't sound like it was something that Jed was like demanding or any contentious things, but I think a real sign of healthy conversations with them and the ability for Tom and Crane to seemingly change their mind on something. We had heard that this organization was just not going to do that. It was something they didn't agree with. They were resistant to it. And when you see so many of these big free agents coming off the board with these deferrals in their contract, you start to wonder, is this necessary to play the game? Is this a price of sitting at the table? Is your willingness to do this? And kudos to Jed Hoyer, and good on Tom and Crane for listening to the guy they're paying to make these decisions and build the team for them. It seems to be where some of these contract discussions are going. So even if it's not something they do at the level of the Dodgers, or even if it's not something they do routinely, as I said at the beginning, they wanted a guy and they needed to figure out what they could do to get him away from Boston. Yep. And that was my big takeaway, that they had these productive conversations as a front office, and maybe the philosophy on the whole has changed.
Let's talk about how the plate appearances make sense.
Well, and before I let you do that, that was the big takeaway presented by Xfinity. Imagine that.
Good job. Let's talk about the play appearances, how the numbers make sense, how you can put Matt Shaw on the roster, give him a full slate of at-bats, Moises Ballesteros. After this second ad break, we'll come back around and talk about all that. Dick's Sporting Goods game day. It's almost here in Chicago. It's cold in Chicago, whether you're heading to the stadium or setting up on the couch. Dick's Goods is your destination for officially licensed Chicago Bears gear to get you ready for the big home game on Sunday night. I love going to Dick's Sporting Goods. You can find the latest Bears jerseys, tees, hats, fleece, and cold weather gear for the whole family. New arrivals include good, better, best styles from top brands like Nike and 47. So you can rep your team all season long, hopefully for a very long playoff stretch for the Bears. From tailgate ready layers to everyday fan favorites, Dick's has everything you need to show up in style when it matters most. You can shop in stores or online at dicks.com, or get your gear faster with quick and easy pickup options. Every game day starts at Dick's. And those 47 apparel, I got like 1547 hats over here. Truly one of the best brands. And all right, winter, it's here. The real question is your home ready for the cold? When it comes to staying warm and protected this season, you need Four Seasons heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electric. If you got a plumbing emergency, you can call Four Seasons. You got an electrical issue, call Four Seasons. You need a hot water tank installed today? Yep, call Four Seasons. Now is the time to schedule your Four Seasons furnace tune-up before the real cold hits. And if you're thinking about a whole home generator, they've got you covered there too. Here's the best part: 4-season guarantee, same-day installation for heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, and generator needs with no extra charge for nights, weekends, or holidays. You can save up to $4,000 on furnaces and comfort systems right now. Furnaces start at $39 a month, and furnace plus AC combos from $57 a month. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for special offers and money-saving coupons. Again, that's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
So back with you, Brendan. And here's the thing: like, if you're heading to Soldier Field this weekend, you stop at Dick's, you get some, clothes or layers to keep you warm. Alex Bregman just told you he's here to win and he's here to play in the World Series. You can reuse them in November. You don't have to put them away once spring starts. You save them. You keep them for the World Series. You have your layers there. It's multi-purpose, multi-sport.
This is the happiest I've seen you in 10 years. Truly.
That might be true. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I do think it helps. I wanted the guy for 2 off seasons. I think he complements this team extremely well with his offensive profile and what he brings to this lineup. And I think it was something that was missing and something they needed more of in terms of these consistent, stable hitters. But in addition to that, I do, and it's part of why it was my Xfinity big takeaway. Like, I think it is a little symbolic. Like, it's not, it's not a $200+ million deal. It's not some, 10-year, $900 million crazy thing that we've seen for some of these guys. But when we were talking about these rumors, I think there was a clear hesitancy from the fan base, with a good reason, to necessarily believe that if the market reached a certain point, they were going to be the team outbidding everyone else. Yeah. And to see them do it, to see them add these deferrals, again, we'll see. You have to keep doing it. Every offseason is different. Like, the seasons keep changing, but it did feel a little symbolic, I think, from this organization. We wanted them to make a move that said, we are not satisfied with losing to the Brewers, and we're not satisfied with getting eliminated from the playoffs by the Brewers. And we're not just going to let Kyle Tucker walk and say, hey, here are our young guys. We believe in them. Like, we trust it. Go make the move that says this is our division. And this, especially after trading your top prospect for Cabrera, it does feel symbolic of this front office to say sort of exactly that. Like, this is our guy, and we're going to shell out for it. We're the Chicago Cubs. We've been waiting for them to make a move that felt like that, right? Like, we are the Chicago Cubs. We have this muscle behind us, and we're going to use it. And they did.
Is there any trepidation about how the current roster fits for a full season? Is there trepidation in the outfield depth? Is there maybe a saturation in the infield with having Shaw in that super utility role? What do you think is a natural way this works out?
In terms of where everybody plays?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think, this is also part of the reason that you pay head counsel the money that you do. You want a guy who we've saw him do it a lot in terms of, sometimes much to the chagrin of the fan base, but swapping out Michael Busch mid-game if they brought in a tough lefty, or getting Cade Horton out at the 75 pitch mark, even if he was pitching a, no hit shutout, things like that. That's why you pay Craig Counsell, tongue twister, to make these decisions and to make it work. I think it can work. Guys are often not at optimal health. We've seen some of these guys be neutralized by certain splits. And I think the immediate thought that I have is, if you are keeping Matt Shaw, he's still in trade rumors. Like, I think it's going to continue until, maybe these other teams clear up those positions. I think the one thought would be, if you believe in Matt Shaw and you do believe that, say, Nico Hoerner wants shortstop money and he's not going to return, and he's going to be your second baseman, can you get him enough plate appearances to allow him to continue his development? We saw him have such an extreme rookie season, but make significant adjustments. Can you get him in there enough to allow him to truly be doing that? I think the answer is yes. I think these things just work themselves out. But I would understand if that was kind of the area people are thinking about. Otherwise, not really.
I mean, I had the same question. So I wanted to model it. Cubs are a modeling organization.
Of course you did. Yeah.
This is a modeling fan.
That was the worst thing they could have said, you guys, that they adhere to these models. Brendan's like, that's me. That's talking to me.
Come in my DMs, Cubs. So I did model this, and I asked my computer, I said, hey, give me the optimal plate appearance number for every single hitter based on their Fangraphs projected WAR. Give me the total numbers. And here's some positional constraints. You can't have Matt Shaw catching. You can't have Moises Ballesteros playing shortstop. This is the output they gave me. Matt Shaw gets 522 plate appearances. Alex Bregman, this is not going to happen, gets 686. Okay. The rest makes sense. Dansby Swanson, 650. Nico Hoerner, 670. Seiya, 600. Michael Busch, 560. Ian Happ, 650. Carson Kelly, Miguel Amaya at 380, 260, respectively. Then the bench, this is how the bench works out. Tyler Austin, 280. Kevin Alcantara, and right now we'll see what they do with the very last spot, and Jonathan Long maybe, or whoever's going to be playing Jonathan Long's role, about 25 to 30 games each. So what does that mean? Well, what about Moises Ballesteros? Well, Moises Ballesteros in this scenario will get about 130 plate appearances. So that's the word. That's the area of critique you can give this scenario. But then I just listed 680 for Bregman. I just listed upwards to 670 for Nico, as well as Dansby Swanson. Now, Tyler Austin gets 280. You start subtracting. You want to give Mo 300, 50 from there. That's 3 to 4 games. 50 from Tyler Austin. Hell, Mo starts hitting. Tyler Austin, you're going to play less than the DH role. Mo, you get 300 plate appearances. You can easily work your way up to getting Moises Ballesteros the plate appearance number he deserves. Here's the beneficial aspect of this. The roster self-regulates. Matt Shaw does not hit. Well, Moises Ballesteros, you're playing DH. You just swap those numbers. What happens if Moises Ballesteros doesn't hit and Matt Shaw hits? Thank God we have Alex Bregman. So you get your safety net in Matt Shaw, you get your safety net in Moises Ballesteros, and a safety net in Alex Bregman. Your roster naturally works its way out, and you are not just trying to make it work, you are probabilistically able to make it work in this scenario. We don't have to squint to figure out if Matt Shaw needs to play left field. You can still make this work as is. You use the DH as leverage, and it works its way out even when those guys are failing.
Well, and look, I think the counter, this is the problem you want to have. Yes,
Yeah.
of the
It's
options. The
not, I
problem
wouldn't even frame it as a problem.
no, no,
This
no,
is
no,
what I
but
want.
the thought exercise, you wanna be talking about, "Hey, we feel like we have guys, we need to get more plate appearances. How do we do it?" The alternative is what they dealt with last year at third base. You gave it to Matt Shaw. When that didn't work, Justin Turner didn't really start hitting even left-handed pitching until midway
John
through the
Birdie,
season. John Birdie, Vidal
Vidal
Brujan,
Brujan.
basically worthless over there. Gage Workman, like the guys that they tried. And so then you're sort of like, uh-oh, we don't have a major league third baseman
Right.
unless our 22-year-old rookie comes back from
And
AAA
they
and
he
figures out
did.
how to hit, which he did. Kudos to Matt Shaw and like making those adjustments. But I think like that's the alternative. The situation that you have now is akin in that sense when you think about 2016, where the exercise is, hey, we have guys we'd like in this lineup. Maybe we can't get them in there every night for all 9 innings. Maybe we're subbing guys out mid-game. Maybe some guys aren't playing. But what a wonderful problem to have, because the alternative is if anybody gets hurt or any of these younger guys struggle, you don't really have strong backups or secondary options for those guys. And that's obviously quite necessary. We see it across the league all the time. So I think it is just one of those things that I do anticipate working itself out. And whether that's, guys needing time off their feet, guys will get hurt, even if it's small injuries that take them out for little bits at a time. But that also, it provides that insurance to those guys. We think about Dansby playing through that core issue, some of those other things. You want the depth. He's always going to feel like he has to do that. But if you have that quality depth and the guys stepping in are really deserving of that playing time, it makes it a little more comfortable for those guys to say, hey, you know what? I'll take a day off my feet. Sure, Craig Counsell, like I will sit today. That's fine.
Yeah. Niran brought up a good point. Say in right field worries him. The outfield depth, if you want to be the most pessimistic, I share some of those potential concerns. I share the concern with folks about Kevin Alcantara's ability to hit right-handed pitching. If he is put in a position where Seiya goes down and he has to get almost every second day at bats, I'm not inclined to think that's a good strategy. Then you start thinking, well, can Tyler Austin play the corners with proficiency? He was in Japan in domed stadiums, 34 years old. Wrigley's a mess out there sometimes. It does feel as if there may come a point where Jed's looking around and trying to shore up some of the outfield depth that he wished he had when the season started. At the same time, you do look at Kevin Alcantara, and he's one of those guys that has a high ceiling that can play not just a good center field, but a well above average center field that can go left field to right field as well. And then we did talk about Matt Shaw maybe having to play left field in an emergency. Let's say if there's an injury to Seiya or Ian Happ, you can shift around guys and make it work. Is it ideal? I don't think it's ideal. I think there's room to improve the outfield depth, but it's a manageable decision from the front office to make as the season progresses. And if you go into the year thinking, oh man, Seiya defensively is a liability, I also don't think that's quite true. He played there for multiple seasons. Some games did not look the best, but he is comfortable at Wrigley Field, and some guys are not comfortable playing there for the first time. And quite frankly, when I was watching Tucker in right field last year, there were some games where he's just not seeing it well, and he's a quality outfielder in and of himself. So I do think Seiya's fine defensively in right field. There's no trepidation for me with Seiya there.
I don't either. I mean, he certainly has had his share of miscues, but I think on the whole, he plays a fine right field.
Like the miscues are at night when like the ball gets lost in the lights. I feel like balls that come in on him, but I think he's fine.
Yeah, I do too, or at least not worth, maneuver anything. For the interesting thing too, last year he put up a lot better offensive numbers when he also played in the field.
So there you go.
For whatever that's worth. But I do share, I think even to Niran's point, less about, the fielding so much, but for a guy that, we have seen have those kind of extreme valleys at times, I do think the ability to keep him fresh and healthy and at his optimal, sort of his body feeling good. I do think that's important. It's important for everybody, but I think especially with someone like Seiya, where we've seen just those extreme valleys, that lack of confidence at the plate, and, you know, sort of the hitting just vanishing for a month at a time. Not suggesting that that's due to him playing in the field, but I think if you can find ways to make sure that he's fresh, both physically and mentally, perhaps you can mitigate those extreme outcomes a little bit more. Want to keep talking about the Chicago Cubs, talk about the rest of the offseason. We'll keep talking about playing time, talk about Cubs convention this weekend in our last 15 minutes here. Let's hit our third and final ad break, and then we'll be back with you to wrap up this episode.
Okay, Ray CDJR new vehicles are rolling in at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and right now is your chance to save and score big at the Ray Resolution Sales event. Head to Ray CDJR to Route 12 in Fox Lake and choose from one of the Chicago area's largest inventories of new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles. Right now, get 0% financing for 72 months plus no payments until spring on select new models. And if you're shopping on a tight budget, Ray has over 100 vehicles priced under $20,000. With a friendly team of brand experts, Ray CDJR is here to help guide you through every step of your car shopping journey. They prioritize affordability, so you know you won't overpay for the vehicle that you need. And with Ray's price promise, there are no add-ons or hidden fees ever. The price you see, that is the price you pay. It is that simple. Visit Ray CDJR in Route 12 in Fox Lake or online at raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963. And if you're looking for a spot to catch every big game upcoming this season, this place checks all the boxes. Chicago's #1 holiday pop-up bar, Almost Home Alone, is officially live. We'll finish up this week. They have also, the food is absolutely unreal. They've got One Bite Pizza Review, approved tavern style pizza, a chef-driven menu, and elevated bar food with local flavor, and hands down one of the best smash burgers in the city. The pizza alone is worth the trip. It's not just about the food. We're talking pool, darts, big buck hunter, shuffleboard, and wall-to-wall TVs. You can literally watch any sport. And yeah, the owners are diehard Bears fans. You can watch that Bears game this Sunday at Almost Home Tavern. And the location, absolutely tremendous. Just a block north of Wrigley Field, making it your go-to pre-game, during game, and post-game Cubs spot. Top it all off with daily specials and a happy hour that's actually worth your time. So do yourself a favor. Go check out Almost Home Tavern.
All right, Brendan, back with you here. Finish things off. So I think the question becomes now, right? We're not, certain trade rumors we're not even entertaining. They're not going to do it. It's very stupid to do it. Maybe Matt Shaw persists in these rumors if someone is desperate. What finishes off this offseason? Are they done? Should they be done? What else do they need to put a pin in this? And I know it's tough right now because we're sorting through some of these Alex Bregman contract details, but where do you estimate they are luxury tax-wise? And if there were any remaining budget, what would you spend it on?
Well, so the models for estimating luxury tax thresholds, there is some room for error with what we see. If you go to MLB COTS, which I've been doing this for years, you can easily see in Excel form how the CBA tax is calculated. They give right now, with Bregman's present day value at roughly just under 31 million AAV, they give the Cubs about $2.5 million before or under that first tier of the tax. They, according to their models and their projected expenses, don't have the Cubs exceeding the tax right now. There is error in both directions. They were wrong in 2024, as were most public models. And to our surprise, the Cubs went over in 2024. So it's a possibility they are already over right now. We just don't have the nuance of those calculations. They're likely going to go over this year. You can't go throughout the season with trying to hope and pray you can get through without any unforeseen additions. Now, you do calculate guys coming up and down from the minors and getting guys outside the organization, but the all likelihood is at some point they will need to make moves. and they will likely go over. It's just a matter of how much, as they did go over in 2024. I don't think they're going to make any more major moves between now and opening day. I would be surprised, and I would welcome that absolutely, but I believe they have everything they need from a foundational standpoint to start the season with all gears going. And if they make another move, great, but I believe this is what you're going to get.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, outfield depth potentially. You can never have too many bullpen guys.
They may bring in some of those outfield guys on minor league deals, invites in spring training. I'm blanking on his name right now, but the Dodgers center fielder from last year, he let the ball get wedged in the wall in the World Series. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he was brought over on a minor league option for an invite to spring training. That could be one guy as well. You may see more.
Yeah. And, look, I expect them to continue to load up on those minor league guys, non-roster invites, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen them have success bringing some of those guys into spring training. But yeah, I think, this is the Bregman move is obviously a huge swing, and that's following the Cabrera trade. Like you've made some pretty aggressive moves to put this team in a really solid position. And if you can continue the good work that you've done with your pitching infrastructure to find those guys to help out Daniel Palencia in the back end of that bullpen and take on some of those higher leverage innings, that's going to be the key exercise. Because that's one area when we came into the season, we didn't know if they would maybe play in the deeper end of that pool. They've added some guys to the bullpen, but I don't know that any of them are that absolute, high leverage, late inning reliever type guys.
They added 5 guys on major league deals to the bullpen. Hunter Harvey may be the one guy they foresee as being that late inning leverage guy, sharing some roles in the 8th and 9th with Daniel Palencia. Hunter Harvey has the high fastball, has the injuries to go with it. They gave him $6 million. They spent nearly $30 million on the bullpen. If I were to ask you at the start of the offseason, hey, he signed with the Mets?
He signed with the Dodgers.
You're kidding.
Kyle Tucker signs with the Dodgers.
You're kidding.
I got Jeff Passan here live.
How much is it?
Didn't say yet. Oh, man.
We knew this was going to happen.
It's just like so it's so predictable, man.
Like
when everybody says that.
I texted you this early in the day. I'm like, oh, he's going to the Dodgers. Did I not say that? When you hear the reports about, hey, the Mets have a short-term AAV, hey, the Blue Jays made a long-term offer, but don't forget about the Dodgers. That was John Heyman's tweet like this morning.
Well, and I knew it. Well, yeah, and just like reading some of those, the Mets are offering a shorter deal, or maybe the Blue Jays will go to the 6th year. You're like, if nobody's pumping up like an 8-year or something deal, the Dodgers are just waiting around to offer.
What's the years? Did they give you anything? Is there any years? This is nothing?
I don't see it yet.
My phone just
died. Happening live on the air.
My phone just died. I can't even look this up.
Look, I think this does sort of tie back to, when we were talking about needing to do those deferrals, right? Like if they're going to, now the CBA, good luck with that. I don't know how they're going to sort through this, but like you have teams in this league that
short-term deal.
Yeah, you have teams in this league that are going to such extreme lengths to spend money and acquire all the best talent available. You got to try as best you can to compete in that market. So if offering Bregman a little bit of a deferral helps the Cubs do that, like that's what you need to do, because this is what we're all doing. This is what we're all dealing with.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
This is like truly unbelievable. And once they start having the negotiations for the new CBA, like Dodgers are not doing anyone any favors right now.
No. Unfortunately, not that I agree with it, and we don't have to get into who's the real villain in this situation, but them stockpiling talent like this is not going to yield a good result, I don't think, in the CBA.
So all we know is a short-term deal. The year's not been announced. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably close to 45-50 million, if I had to guess. It's probably a 3-year deal. It's probably Cody Bellinger's deal times 50%, basically, if I had to guess.
Man.
Unbelievable, man. I knew it was going to be the Dodgers. I saw Heyman's tweet. I know Heyman takes offense to it, but he's basically Scott Boris's assistant. I knew it was going to be the Dodgers. But you know what?
This is yeah, go ahead.
You know what? He doesn't play infield. The Dodgers don't have her infield depth. No one has her infield depth. Doesn't take away Nico Hoerner. I'm sure the Dodgers want Nico Hoerner. Doesn't take away Dansby Swanson.
They might have 100 of the best players in the world, but we've got Gold Gloves. So no, look, ultimately, as it relates to that, like, look, we don't play in their division. Cubs aren't in their division.
Thank God.
So it's a problem if you run into them in the playoffs and you deal with it then. Like, I know it's frustrating, I think, for fans broader of the game and stuff like that. I imagine there's a lot of Dodger fatigue that exists among, casual fans and fans of just the general sport itself. But as the Cubs are concerned, they got to beat the Brewers. Like, we're jumping ahead a little bit. Conquer the one beast first, right? And then you can move on to the big one. But, look, like, you want to win a championship, you're going to have to play the big dogs in the playoffs. And luckily, winning the division and potentially getting that bye or dealing with that seeding is not something the Cubs have to go through the Dodgers in order to do. If I was a Padres fan, this would be a very different conversation. I think Brendan and I would have had to step off the air.
I'm not going to let this ruin my night. I'm not going to let this ruin the day, Listen, here's the thing about baseball. The randomness can go in both directions, and often it does. You can have a perfect run differential prediction, a perfect run differential projection, and still have an error of wins plus or minus 4. So that's how dumb the sport is. The Dodgers, they could have a year like the 2024 Braves where you have injuries nonstop. That's how baseball is. The Cubs could outproduce their projections by, one of those top tier teams and win over 100 games. That's how baseball operates. So the Dodgers, they just keep building reserves. That way they can offset some of these potential disasters. That's why they're such a good organization. But baseball is weird. I'm not gonna let it ruin my day.
Not our problem, man. Like, if it becomes our problem, it means the Cubs are probably facing them in the NLCS, which is like, all right, great.
Have
fine.
Kate Horn go out there and strike them out.
Yeah, no problem. We'll deal with that when we get there. Win the division before we're worrying about the Dodgers. But I do, it's a little bother. Like, it's just so predictable. I think, like, that's the thing. Everybody jokes about it. Like, oh, he's a free agent, he'll go to the Dodgers. They'll wait around.
Well, we knew this was going to happen. They have no outfield depth.
Anyway, wrapping it up. Looking forward, if you're going to CubsCon, I hope you have a good time. I'm sure the 2016 stuff will be a lot of fun. I believe they were doing sort of a team-only celebration at Wrigley Field tonight. I saw the wonderful Sam Bernero posting some pictures at the hotel of some of the guys arriving. I saw Mike Montgomery, Justin Grimm, Albert Almora. So good to see some of those guys again. And I'm glad they get this moment,
Is Ross going to be there?
I do believe he is going to be there. Yes.
Oh, really? Because I didn't see his name on the thing,
At least at some of this stuff. I did read that he would be there.
That's cool.
Yeah. And
you think he'll shake Craig Counsell's hand? Handshake 2.0.
I don't know. Craig took the job. He didn't do it, but yeah, and hey, look, Niren says, we get the Dodgers draft pick, so take that for the qualifying offer for Kyle Tucker.
Sure.
Anyway, this is an exciting week for the Cubs, and it's been an exciting couple of weeks. They made some big swings. When we came into this offseason, I think if you had said they add some bullpen depth, they swing a trade for a cost-controlled, young, high-ceiling starter, and they sign a big-time free agent like Alex Bregman, that would have been pretty close to an A offseason. For Jed Hoyer and this front office. I think this team looks really good heading into the year, and I'm very excited about it. I'm thrilled with this move. I think Alex Bregman is a great ambassador for this organization and this clubhouse, and I think he's equal or an even better fit for this lineup and just what this lineup needed. To help them grow and help them get further than they did in 2025. So I'm thrilled with all of this. We'll see if they have anything else up their sleeve. We're going to have to deal with some of these rumors still about some of our infielders, and we'll see, if somebody comes calling and makes an offer that Jed can't refuse for somebody. But otherwise, I think this team looks very strong and has put themselves in a position to be better than the Milwaukee Brewers, which coming into the offseason was goal number one. Leave the offseason feeling like this is your division, at least on paper. Got to play the game. But it's been a minute, I think, since we felt definitively that was the case. And as we sit here right now, I feel like that's the case, Brendan.
Yep. Let's go. We got the pitchers and catchers reporting soon. We got pictures from Rich Beisterfeld already. The season's right underway, Corey.
Don't forget to tune in to our wonderful Bears team. They'll have you covered pre and post on Sunday. They are the best in the business. Brendan and I will talk to you again next week. If you're going to CubsCon, have a good time. Say hi to John Lester for me. And we will talk to you again next week. As always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.